My mom wants to defend my sister for stealing from me and is trying to send me to military school. When I was 15, just about a year before my parents divorced, my younger sister would blow through her allowance without a second thought. She would spend it on makeup, food at the mall, video games, and clothes from Hot Topic. I also had an allowance, but in contrast to her, my dad made sure I worked my tail off doing things around the house and yard, like keeping the place clean and keeping the yard in line. My sister never did any work, though, unless Dad was there watching her. My mom never enforced any tasks either, except making her clean her room if she wanted money. Much of my time was spent mowing lawns and collecting cans from around the neighborhood for their 6-cent deposit, along with other odd jobs. I had a goal in mind, to save enough money to buy a scooter so I could be mobile around town. With hard work, I had put away some $2,500 over 2 years. It was not easy, though. My sister knew where all of my hiding spots were and would find ways to dip into my stash. I used to hide my money, but my sister would always find a way to steal from it. I especially remember this one time. Me, "Hey, did you take my money again?" Sister, "What? No, I didn't." She'd always lie if caught. Me, "You're a terrible liar. There's $100 missing from my savings." Sister, "Leave me alone, I didn't do it." Then faked crying and ran to Mom. Sister, "Mom, picking on me." Me, "She took from my savings again." Mom, snapped fingers, "Shut up. Can't you see Mama's little girl is upset? She said she didn't do it, so she didn't. End of story. Now, if you don't let this go, I'll ground you." Me, "I know she did it. If you don't get the money back, I'll get Dad's help." Mom, "There's no need for that. You don't have any proof." Yes, I do. I keep a record of every dollar I deposit, and 3 days ago, the total was $300, but now there is only $100 is gone. And I know she has taken from my savings previously. In addition, I saw you took her shopping trip yesterday. She doesn't have $1 to her name. Where did she get it? Mom paused, thinking for a moment, then scowled. "You're grounded. Go to your room, or I'll get the belt." Arguing further didn't help. I knew by then. I had learned when to stop talking and just call Dad. So I said nothing more to either of them and went quiet. I went to my room, slammed the door, and grabbed my old Nokia phone to call my dad at work. He didn't answer, and I left a message telling him everything that had happened. About an hour later, he called me back and assured me he had taken care of it. Not long after, I heard the house phone ringing and Mom yelling at Dad in the kitchen. I couldn't catch much from my room, but I could hear her trying to explain herself, which, as usual, wasn't going to work. Then at the end, she was saying something like, "Well, if she actually did take it, you can reimburse because obviously she spent it already." She stormed into my room, furious. "I don't believe you told on me. You couldn't just let this go after all I do for you," she yelled. I said, "So you're admitting my sister took it?" Mom scoffed and said, "You know what? I don't care. Girls need more money than boys. You should just be giving it to her anyway. It wasn't even that much." I shot back, "It was not a little money and you know it. She took $100, and even if it were $1, I would still want it back. You would not want someone helping themselves to your purse." It didn't matter to me if my sister took money from me. She was guilty, and that was all I wanted back, the money. I worked hard for it, and she did nothing. Mom replied, defending her, "My baby doesn't have to do anything. She's a princess and should be treated that way." I said, "That's not my problem. She can go be a princess somewhere else and stay away from my things." Mom's face turned red and she said, "If you don't stop being a little, I'll beat your ass." I stood my ground, looking her in the eye. By 15, I was already as tall as her and strong from all the outdoor work. Go ahead and try. I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm not backing down. For a moment, she froze and then let out a loud yell, swinging her arm in an attempt to knock something off my dresser. She missed, though, and ended up hitting the dresser itself, which I'm sure hurt. She grabbed her hand, holding back the pain, and shot me an enraged look while grinding her teeth. Without saying another word, she turned around and walked out. I could hear my mom making a scene as she stomped down the hall, smacking the walls as she went, and then heading downstairs into the kitchen. I knew exactly what she was doing. Anytime she didn't get her way, she would go straight to her wine fridge and start drinking. Meanwhile, my sister had been watching from the doorway of her room. She looked at me with a wide-eyed and horrified expression before rushing inside and slamming the door. My sister had always gotten away with what she did to me because of my mom, but that was going to change a few hours later when my dad came home from work and marched my sister into my room. He made her admit she stole from me and told me I wasn't grounded. She wouldn't even look at me the whole time she was apologizing. She mumbled it at first in the quietest, tiniest voice possible, but my dad wouldn't let up until she practically yelled it. Dad then gave me a $100 bill to compensate for the amount my sister took and told me that she was grounded for a week. He further announced that the money stolen would be deducted from her allowance. My sister burst into tears, called Dad awful, and stormed to her room. In the meantime, my mom was sitting out on the back patio, getting drunk with her favorite wine and ignoring everything going on in the house. Never did she apologize to me, and at times, she acted as if the whole incident never occurred. My sister still got her allowance, though. It was my mom who gave it to her this time, not Dad. A few days later, on Dad's day off, we went to a local store, and he bought me a combination safe to keep my money and other small valuables in. We didn't tell my mom or sister about it. The safe was set with a 4-digit code, and if I recall correctly, the code I used back then was 4,962. I put all my money in it, locked it, and hid the safe at the back of my closet. A few weeks went by, and one day, after I'd finished mowing some neighbors' lawns, I came home to find my room had been ransacked. I called Mom to tell her what my sister did to my room, but of course she denied it. "Mom, my baby didn't do this." Me: "Well then who did?" "Mom, I don't know." Me: "It could only have been one of you because the room was clean when I left and no one else was here." Mom, clearly agitated at having been caught lying, snapped, "Fine, but if she did do it, so what? You had it coming for not being nicer to her," and stormed off. I left another message on my dad's work voicemail telling him what had happened. Then I marched into my sister's room and confronted her. I told her I knew it was her who ransacked my room, and before she could get a word in edgewise, I added that she wouldn't be able to get her hands on my money anymore because I had locked it away in a safe. She, of course, immediately threw a tantrum, and Mama Bear came running to her defense. I just repeated myself that my sister couldn't get to my money anymore, and went back to my room to start cleaning up. My sister continued to scream in her room for the next 20 minutes. Nothing was really missing or broken. My room just got torn up and everything was just out of place. I picked all of it up and put it the way it was. Most definitely. It was the smuggest thing I had felt while cleaning my room, but the next day, everything was trashed again. This time my window was broken. My sister had thrown the safe out the window, not being able to unlock it. I called my dad immediately, and when both my parents came home from work, my sister confessed to what she had done. She acted like she was proud of it, My mom even went so far as to try to defend her, saying I shouldn't have bought the safe in the first place, but my dad wasn't hearing that. He chewed her out, explaining that he got the safe for me because he was tired of my sister taking from me. Every time she would take money and spend it, he had to pay me back since my mom never would. In the end, we had to replace the whole window, and my dad installed a lock on my door for extra protection. He also got a combination key lock box that held the key to my room and placed it right next to the door. I had gotten my window broken by my sister, for which she got grounded for a month. She would just sit in her room sulking whenever Dad was home, but as soon as Dad was off work, Mom let her do whatever she wanted, whether it be playing video games or watching TV. I did not bother saying anything since I knew if I did, both my sister and Mom would make things worse for me. When her grounding finally ended, my sister started asking me for money every time she would run out of her allowance. I called her on it, knowing she would never pay me back since she never had any savings. For grins, I drew up an IOU just to see if she would actually sign it in front of Dad. Later, she ripped the paper in half and ran crying to Mom, telling her I was being mean. Of course, Mom tried to pressure me into giving her the money, but I reminded her what Dad would do if I did. If Sis wanted any more money, she'd have to deal with him. More than that, I knew I wasn't going to be handing any money over to my sister. My mom even tried to get me sent to military school, but Dad didn't let her. I don't know why, but my dad never helped me set up a savings account back then. I think we just handled things with cash back then. To update, there was one time after my dad had given me the safe for my money that I managed to get my mom to walk right into my room. He also put a deadbolt lock on my door and a wall mount lockbox that needed a code to access the key because my sister had thrown my safe out the window. Dad and I put together the lockbox and locked together while Mom and sister were away from the house. When my sister walked by my room for the first time after we'd installed it, I saw her stop and stare at the lock. She then ran to tell Mom. The two of them stormed upstairs to confront us, and this is what I remember from the exchange. Mom snapped her fingers and pointed at the lock. "What the hell is that?" Dad just said, "A door lock." Mom snapped, "I know what it is, but why is it there?" Dad said, "Because you never punish or stop our daughter from stealing from Ashley or ransacking his room, so from now on the lock stays." Mom shot back, "He's 15 and this is my house. He can't have a lock on his door." Dad, stone-faced, said, "It's our house, but last I checked I pay most of the mortgage and bills. You hardly contribute anything, and I'm tired of you favoring our daughter so much that Ashley keeps having to suffer for it." "Fine. I want you to tell me the combination for the lockbox," her enraged mother demanded. Dad calmly replied, "No, I'm not doing that, because you've shown that I can't trust you anymore." Mom totally freaked out, storming down the stairs. My sister just stood there all pouty and slowly walked to her room. With the new lock installed, things finally calmed down. It became a routine for me to lock the door every time. I would often leave my bedroom and catch my sister and Mom staring at me when I input the code to unlock the box, but I always made sure to block their view with my hand or body. They didn't like it, but there wasn't much they could do about it. One day, then, toward the end of the month, my sister approached me for $50 to buy a video game she really wanted. "Me, why do you keep asking me to lend you money when we both know you'll never pay it back?" "Sis, I swear I'll pay it back." "No, you won't. You blow everything you get in a month, and you always want to waste all of your allowance instead of paying me back. That's what you do." "Sis, no, I don't." "Me, well, how about we test that?" I went to my room, grabbed a piece of paper and a pen, and started to write something up. So I drew up an IOU contract stating that my sister would pay me back the $50 when she got her monthly allowance, and had Dad sign it as a witness. Always have a witness for contracts, folks. My sister read the paper, began sniffing, and then tore it in half, running off to Mom in tears, just like she did every time things didn't go her way. "Sis, why would you do this, Jason?" "Mom, what's wrong, my little princess? What did Jason do now?" "Me? She wanted to borrow money, so I made her sign an IOU in front of Dad. Then she freaked out." "Mom, why would you do that? She just wanted to borrow a little money." "Me, would you sign the IOU too, to make sure she pays it back?" "Mom, you little..." "I don't have to sign anything. Now, just give her the money." "Me, not without a signed IOU." Mom stood, her arm out like she was going to hit me, but then pulled it back. "Mom, you're just like your father, always needing a paper trail for everything. I hate it." Then I began to walk up the stairs to my room. "Mom, well, I'd say it's a good thing you're not getting anything from me." I shot back. "I'm just like Dad, because that's a hell of a lot better than being like you, or like Sis, who never does anything right." "Mom, what did you say, you little..." She stormed up the stairs, and just as I reached my bedroom and locked the door, she tried her usual trick of throwing it open to yell at me. She was used to barging in without hesitation, but this time I had the deadbolt locked, and she wasn't prepared for it. She flung herself at the door, expecting it to open, but it didn't budge. She then slammed hard into it with a loud thud. I could hear her hit the floor and start crying out in pain. She had thrown herself against an old solid wood door, and the impact left her with a fat lip and a bump on her forehead. I opened the door to find Mom sprawled on the floor, pounding her fists in frustration. "Mom, you did this to me, you little..." "Me, you did it to yourself." "Mom, you're grounded. Get out of my sight." After that, I called Dad, and he groaned on the phone about the whole situation. He said I wasn't grounded, but still in trouble for pushing her buttons. He told me to let him handle it when he got home. I did get a stern lecture from him, along with extra chores and a reduction in my allowance for the month, but that was about it. From that point on, every time my sister asked me for money, I'd ask her to sign an IOU. She hated it. Update: my mom once attempted to enroll me in military school, going so far as to forge Dad's signature. It backfired. Since she threatened to spank me the last time I stood up for myself, she must have learned that if she attacked, it would go very poorly for her. From then on, she just pretty much yelled at me, and I was not touched again until later on. Years passed by, and I paid little attention to the past, but just went on with my daily routine of school and odd jobs here and there. My 15th birthday was coming up, and Dad gave me an engine kit for my bike, saying it would help me get around town in the meantime. He also suggested that I was better off saving for a car rather than a scooter. I eventually accepted his reasoning and continued saving for a car. A few days later, I was sweeping grass off the back patio after I finished mowing the lawn and found a pamphlet for a military school. It was on the ground under a chair near where Mom liked to sit and drink wine. I had a bad feeling she was up to something, so I waited until Dad got home to show him what I'd found. He was quite angry, but not one to overreact. He strode over to Mom with the brochure in his hand and accosted her. "Dad." "Honey, what's this?" Her mother turned white upon sight of the pamphlet. "Mom, it's nothing. I've never seen it before." "Dad, really? Because it looks like you were going to send Jason to military school." That's when my mom finally dropped her act and yelled, "He needs to learn some discipline. He locks his door all the time, and I can't even spank him anymore because he's too big. This is the only way I have left to punish him for being a disobedient brat." Dad immediately responded, Jason did nothing wrong when he stood up to you because of your favoritism. If anything, our daughter is the brat because of how you spoiled her and let her get away with stealing from her brother. As far as I'm concerned, this whole discussion about sending Jason to military school is over. If you try to do it, so help me, I'll bring the hammer down on you any way I can." Mom shot back, "Well, I suppose that's what this whole family is going to do now. Take what little power I have left in this house. What I don't have, I might as well be nothing." Dad fired back, "You and I both know you'd rather keel over than be nothing. Stop being so dramatic. Jason is growing up and becoming his own man now, with his own money." Mom just walked out of the room after that. The next morning, before school, I saw my mom frantically trying to stuff something into the kitchen trash bin. I waited for her to leave for work and dug out what she was trying to hide. An application to military school, filled out entirely in her handwriting. The form needed to be signed by both parents or legal guardians, and I noticed 2 signatures on it. One was unmistakably my mom's, but the other looked like a weak attempt at copying my dad's signature. He was proud of his flowing, complicated signature, and there was no way she could have copied it without it looking forged. I guess she realized that after I confronted her and gave up on trying to send me away. I kept the papers and showed them to my dad later. He was mad but figured it was already done and let it go. Still, he put the papers away in his office just in case. It came out she had been having an affair with an old high school boyfriend, and that was the last straw for my dad. He initiated divorce proceedings, and I was to live with him when he bought a new house. When he produced the fake military school papers, the ones my mother had signed with his name, the divorce process hastened. It wasn't just those papers. He had proof that she forged his signature on at least one credit card application and, if I remember correctly, one other piece of evidence that made my mother fear criminal charges of fraud. The divorce proceedings went through quickly after that, and she agreed to most of his terms. She ended up with the house because my dad didn't want it, but she demanded both alimony and child support, which my sister, not surprisingly, remained with her for. The judge granted her child support and a minimal alimony payment for 10 years, paid monthly. The alimony was just enough for my sister's allowance, which did not make my mom happy at all. She threatened to take my dad back to court, but he kept the forged signatures as leverage and used these to keep her from following through. On the day I left to go to Dad's new house, she stuck her tongue out at me and smugly said that Mom had told her that she was the princess and more deserving sibling, which is why I was leaving. I just shook my head and told her she could think whatever she wanted because I didn't care anymore, then walked out, feeling free at last. My relationship with my sister only got worse when she came to visit Dad once a week. Eventually, we stopped talking entirely for years, and I lost interest in visiting Mom's house. She had basically turned my old room into a home office anyway,